I think that
Whatever.
I think everything is really crazy. What I think is crazy. I think that everything is the same thing. And it's just different versions of it. Everything is water. Everything is light, matter, water.
Are you high right now?
All the same thing, just different vibrations.
And everything vibrates. And ultimately, we have to become masters of vibration to work through the dimensions of this plane. This is the third dimensional plane. So this physical,
Whatever.
physical, this is the physical plane. Now, if we close our eyes
Whatever.
and we envision something, our brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and actual reality.
You go, girl.
So I would say the creator exists beyond it, like within it maybe, but
Which one is it then?
yeah, that's what I think. I have heard that about like how all these seemingly like divine properties of water. You can attribute all kinds of things to water, like it morphs around any situation, like it always adapts to the situation. It seems to there is no way to get rid of it. It's perpetually in a cycle as if it were omnipresent.
This is what it is, okay? I said empty your mind.
He's got that covered.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
And outside
Everyone
of,
dies when people die, it's because of dehydration. Even if you're shot, it's the water leaving your body.
What about if you drown?
You know, if you don't have water, you're dead. Everything. Water's delivered everywhere angelically. I don't know.
Or they will say things like, dark matter 100% exists. We know for a fact that dark matter has to exist, but we don't know what it is. So, how could you know it exists?
So I don't agree with people making claims about ether and exactly what it is, and even the name.
So, how could you know it exists?
You hear that, Mr. Anderson? That is the sound of inevitability.
And we're off. Barely. Had a few snafus. Of course, they always happen at the most inopportune times, but I seem to have recovered quite quickly. Quick on my feet, like a cat. As usual, if you want to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. I think we got a full Discord in there. And the beautiful Betty Van Belson. How's it going, Betty? Hello? Where's he at?
She's on deafened briefly.
Where'd she go?
I don't know. I just noticed.
Huh. And everything's running up to speed. We also got not Brian, who is getting ready to present for today. So we're operating on all 6 cylinders. Oh boy. Oh, the beautiful Betty Van Belson. There she is. Hello. Go time.
Yeah, sorry, on mute.
Right, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's a snafu situation. That you know what snafu means?
No.
Situation normal, all frigged up. So I had a number of things like 15 minutes before the show started, just a number of things pop up, right? And I'm running behind. I'm trying to get everything squared away. I don't have OBS or anything up, and everything's just going a nightmare. So I start up the show. I run the little thing, run the intro, and I say the beautiful Betty Van Velsen. Of course, I'm not looking in Discord, right? Because I already know you're there. But of course, I say, okay, the beautiful Betty Van Velsen. Then all silence.
I dinged you, and I also said something in Skype that I was a little late because I had to do something. I had to make an emergency meal because the first one burned.
I didn't do that same thing today, man. My eggs burnt.
Yeah, well, I'm eating eggs right now, but I had some burritos, 2 of them, and I thought I'd put them in the oven, and they were, well, maybe 5 minutes in there, I think. I'm thinking, let's cut it open, see if it's totally hot, because I don't like the hot on the outside and cold on the inside. So I tasted it. I thought, let me do it a couple of minutes. Too long.
Too long. You burnt them.
Well, not to crisp, but at least to something that you wouldn't like anymore.
I got you. I hate that. And this is the first time with the eggs, too. I was paying attention to something else. I heard them popping. I said, they'll be all right. Yeah, they weren't.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I went to flip them. I said, oh, my God, there's no flexibility in these. They're
Yeah, that's usually a good sign for that.
yeah, that's a good sign. I flipped it over. It was all, they weren't black, but it was like golden the whole way over. And they, sometimes that's a good thing. Not with eggs.
No.
No. Especially over medium. I flipped them over. They weren't medium.
Yeah. For the next time, I know how to do this, but yeah. I had sort of the taste for burritos, a little bit of the spicy. I'm not that spicy of a person, but I had a sort of an idea. Okay, I like this. I want this, and then it's gone.
Yeah, I don't like that part. When you're looking forward to something, yeah, I got you. That's a bummer. All right, so what are we gonna do? I seem to have found my act.
Wow, is it a comedian act?
Because Betty told me right before the show when she was off deaf and mute that you need to get your act together, and I said I can't find it. So I found it partially. What are we gonna do? Brian's not here. He's the principal in today's presentation, the time zone terror.
I think it's a time zone thing too.
That also plays a role. I wonder. Now, listen, I added this show in Skype, and at the top I said, note the time change. Because everyone in Europeville their clocks have changed. We haven't changed, though, here in the States. So if he shows up in an hour, then we know what happened.
Is he in Skype, maybe?
I might want to check that. What's up, Adam?
Honestly, I'm late once and it turns to poo, doesn't it?
Yes.
Adam, is your clock also
What
changed?
a start for a show.
It was a fantastic start. Thank you.
Enjoyed
Adam, are the clocks also changed in your country?
Yeah. Well, we discussed this yesterday, so Brian knows because we worked it out. Refracted was trying to take, it'll be an hour later, but it's not. It's an hour earlier for us.
Betty, you would have loved it yesterday. Everyone was not Adam wasn't confused, but everyone else was confused about what time it will and will not be at a certain location. You would have loved it.
Yeah, well, didn't we have the same thing? Sort of
Yeah.
Get my fingers and toes out, Betty, just to make sure we were right.
Luckily, we have those.
Yeah, it was sort of like that. We were snickering because it's hard to get them down because Betty, I bet you are 1 hour behind or ahead of our English folks.
Ahead.
Yeah.
So they have 7 hours, and I have 6 hours. I have 7 hours ahead of you guys in America. And now it's, I think, also 6 hours for 2 weeks, and then I think you change.
Yeah, it's in like. Oh, there's Brian. Thanks for coming, Brian.
Hey, how
Well,
are
he
things?
thinks so. There's usually some hiccups anyway. So.
That's what he thought. He just missed the burrito talk.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me get out of.
Well, luckily it wasn't about potatoes.
Oh, he is in the potato field or something. He was on the potato trees trying to get the potatoes off or something, right, Brian?
Is he?
It's Halloween night, so there's a lot of. I'm on my own in the house now.
You scared?
Right?
You scared?
No. My friend was supposed to be here, but he had to go out to his sister's. And there's going to be people kids calling for Halloween, wanting to get chocolate and stuff. So I might have to, even if I'm doing a presentation, I might have to pause it and go down and answer the door.
Oh, jeez.
What can I do? I can't not answer the door, can I? I can't not. It's going to be kids. If it was adults, I wouldn't mind. But
turn the light off and save the chocolate for later.
No way. You don't do that.
Yeah, you do. I've parked my car across the steps at the bottom of our drive so you can't get up the steps. We switched the front lights off.
Years ago when I was working, I had forgotten that it was Halloween. You're just in the Monday to Friday thing. You're forgetting. I forgot it was Halloween. I was living in this house. And I came home and I was just there on my own. And I realised, hang on, it's Halloween. And I hadn't got anything. It was evening time for the kids. And the local kids, I tried turning off the lights and hiding in there. And the local kids were kicking the door and shouting in the letterbox, we know you're in there.
We know you're in there.
Yeah, and I was hiding in there. I couldn't face them.
I couldn't face them.
I think you call those zombie kids kicking indoors. Unbelievable.
We know you're in there. That's friggin' hilarious.
You know that we never did anything with Halloween in the past. I can't remember as a kid doing anything with it, but it came from America, a pagan country, America.
I know, it's terrible, that very Protestant tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, we had St. Martin, which was a nicer version of Halloween, just kids having sort of lamps with them, with sort of candles in it. And they would go door to door for candy too. But it was not so freaked out with masks and pumpkins and nastiness with spiders and witches.
We have it popular now, Bay, but when we were kids, it was just an American thing. If you went around trick-or-treating, people would look at you like, are you real?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What? What's got nothing to do with this country whatsoever? It's like next week we've got bonfire night. That's our. Yeah. But to be honest, there's loads of trick or treating now. It's very popular now.
So we have St. Martin, which is usually around, I think, the 11th of the 11th, somewhere that region. So yeah, I think it's a better version.
Halloween is Irish. It's not American, Betty.
What?
Halloween is Irish. It's Celtic.
Irish?
It's not American.
Oh, so we have you to blame.
Yeah, it's the Celtic New Year. That's what it is. The start of the Celtic New Year. November the 1st is the first day of the Celtic New Year.
Oh. So you instigated the Americans.
Yeah. See, misattribution. Yes, Betty. See, misattribution.
What? You made it pagan.
What? You got pagan right.
You made it pagan, you guys, with these stupid sacrifices in the night.
I didn't. No, the Celtics did. He told you.
But isn't it an old? It's Christian tradition, isn't it? It flows through Catholicism and Protestantism. It's it's the eve of All Hallows Day, All Saints Day, isn't it? Tomorrow's All Saints Day. So today's the last chance for any evil spirits, and you go out and tease them. Tomorrow the saints will clear the place.
Really?
And they clear the rock.
I'm
sure that's what it's.
Not the history of Halloween.
I never studied
Well,
it.
I know you'll have a different Irish fucking history. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's Salmain, isn't it? You're probably talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but as far as I know from that, it's a Catholic. It's the day before All Saints Day in Catholicism, isn't it? So you're teasing the spirits because they're about to be removed, as the next day is All Saints Day, isn't it? So.
Well, the tradition here was that the kids dressed up as monsters and stuff like that because the belief was that on this night the gates are open to the spirit world. So good spirits, let's say ancestors and stuff, will come through, but so will bad spirits. So they want to protect the kids, and the way to protect the kids is to make the kids look like they are like bad spirits themselves. So they confuse the bad spirits because the bad spirits always go after the kids. So that's the whole point of the kids dressing up, is to confuse the bad spirits who want to prey on the kids. That's where that came from.
Still, it's pagan.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was. I don't know. Pagan never. The word pagan never really meant much to me. I don't know. It's kind of an old catch-all term, isn't it? But it's Celtic. It's pre. It would be pre-Christianity in that. Like, if you know what I mean, it's pretty old.
Tibetan.
That's Brian. That's why the Catholics then hijack it to make the next day All Saints Day. So they're not denying the people for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years since the birth of Christ will have celebrated that, and then it's that celebration gets adopted into the Catholic diary, doesn't it? Why are you picking that? Because people are always going to be doing the Halloween bit. So the next day, let's make it All Saints Day. That's my way in which it's incorporated in. It's a bit like Easter. All of those dates run from the pagan original festivals, and then they're retitled for Christianity.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to hear something else that's very interesting? Julius Caesar changed July, right, from what it originally was to July after him. Augustus Caesar changed August to August after him from what it was. So October is actually the not the 10th month but the 8th month. September is the 7th month. October is the 8th month. November is the 9th month, and December is the 10th month. So what actually happened is, you know, the way everyone in the Western world celebrates, I suppose a lot of the world celebrates New Year's Eve on the 31st of December. What they're actually celebrating is on the 31st of December what would have been Halloween. So they're actually celebrating Halloween on the 31st of December, and they don't know it because it got moved forward to that 31st of December would have been Halloween because it would have been tonight before they changed the calendar around. So it would have been tonight. This would be the 31st of December because the 31st of October would have happened 2 months ago. So when people think that they're celebrating New Year's Eve on the 31st of December, they're actually celebrating Halloween. They don't know that.
Even more pagan.
Yeah.
Also,
Betty's not a fan of it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Christmas is also was Saturnalia, right? It's also a different feast. And I think that when they try to incorporate Christianity into their pagan world, they thought of something like, if you can't beat them, then join them. They sort of incorporated all the pagan holidays or feasts inside Christianity, but it's not real Christian thing. It doesn't say that you should basically pray or have feast for saints. It never was a thing.
No, it's not part of it. The Catholic Church, like Adam is right, they try to fold in all these things as a way of kind of appeasing the locals, and bit by bit they kind of overtake these things. You know, the same as what they do with the Catholic Church always tried to build their churches on places that were already considered like holy ground or whatever, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep. So now we're stuck with Halloween
Yeah, because of the Irish.
and the scary looking pumpkin
And
the commercial things around it. Huh?
and your catch-all term that you used that Brian identified, pagan.
Pagan.
Yeah. Her catch-all term for Americans.
Mongrels.
Yeah, pagans.
Mongrels.
I could say bastards, but that sounds not so cute.
She's just naming out biker gangs at this stage.
Somewhere
I'm
in
just
the
jealous. I'm just jealous. I should have lived in America. I think it's a land of opportunity, or at least it is a land of beautiful space.
Opportunity to
Where you
get
can
your
have a
ass
home
whooped.
where you can look around on. What?
Opportunity for an ass whooping.
Now that you live there, yeah. Yeah, you have houses where you can walk around, right? And everybody can have a house like that, I think, in your country. Although some people choose to live in New York, I don't get that. Why do people want to be stacked together?
I don't know either. Didn't somebody say, I thought I seen something not too long ago. They said everyone, the entire population of the earth can have like 2 acres in Texas.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
Now-
didn't you say that you could drive through Texas without meeting anybody or seeing anybody?
I drove through Texas from San Antonio. I was headed out to California, so we had to go up to the Panhandle and west that way. And I drove. It felt like a whole friggin' day, like at 80 miles an hour, and I was still in Texas. Like 12 hours or something. We're still. I looked over at my wife. Where are we at? We're still in Texas. I'm there. My God.
Legend has it he's still in Texas.
There's a ranch in Australia as the size of Texas.
Really?
Yeah, it's monstrous. They often have to have helicopters to get around the ranches there. You could be so. What you're saying there is like they definitely have helicopters. No point in driving.
Yeah, it's Texas is absolutely.
Yeah, we have much bigger lands and we have a much bigger space than they say to us. They say that we are overpopulated. It's not true, but we just choose to be on top of each other.
Yeah, when you live on top of each other, and then you say, "Well, we're overpopulated."
Exactly. That's basically what it is. And they say, yeah, but those pieces of land are inhabitable. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, the where we live was inhabitable too before. You know, it was
Exactly.
nature or something else. Come on, we can do so much, but we can't sort of make deserts into blooming landscapes anymore, or but we can do everything to destroy it. It seems sad.
It's odd, isn't it? Hundreds of years ago, the Dutch could master the sea and reclaim land. Yet now,
Yeah.
They just call everyone else mongrels.
And then the English stole it from us.
So they're changing the calendars, then they changed time, and now we got corrupt time zones, don't we?
Oh, is that the bridge?
It is the bridge, isn't it? Do you like that?
Wow. So it's good if you make one.
Yeah, that's talent.
No, that's not talent. That's taking over.
All right, let's get.
Are we moving on then?
So that all people know, I will have to leave in a half an hour. And if you guys are longer than an hour, I will be back. So if you see me leaving, it's not that I hate you guys. It's just have to be some other place.
Lovely. And
Well,
just be
before
ready.
you go,
Hold on.
just-
Hold on. In addition to that, my daughter might be dropping in, so I might have to cut out for a few minutes also.
oh, Ryan's going to be at the door giving trick or treats out.
Yeah.
Anybody staying?
Yeah, you. You will be in
Sounds
charge.
like it, doesn't it?
You.
Asking the question is answering the question.
So before all that stuff happens, let's go ahead because I already built the transition to the presentation. Brian, you ready?
I'm not ready to transition
I am,
yet.
You could.
One more Halloween fact for Brian. 'Cause he's
All
made me
right,
look
go
it
ahead.
up.
You could go one more.
Why is Halloween on the 31st? He was right. You see, it's a transition. They transferred the Feast of All Saints from its original date on May the 13th to November the 1st. So like I said, you know why they're doing it. It's to cajole the population. But the reason stated by the church is it was to coincide with the foundation of a new chapel in St. Peter's Basilica, which was dedicated to all the saints in heaven. Bit smelly, that excuse to me. I think Brian's explanation's better. There you go, yeah. So it was May the 13th, Brian, in the Catholic Church, but then moved to match, in my opinion, with the, but he says the pagan viewpoint.
Well, it was the Romans that messed with the calendar, and it's the Roman Catholic Church that done that. So they're all in the same boat, aren't they?
Yep. Also the horoscopes, right? The people that watch the horoscopes, they also don't match the months. And so you can also see that there's a shift in there. And if you go to the Jewish calendar, they have like Nisan and all the other names for the months. And they are as how the horoscopes are, like the signs in the sky are represented. And that's how it had to or should have been till now, but it has been changed.
How it always was until the calendar
changed.
changes by the Romans and then the Gregorian change, weren't it? So last bit, I didn't know whether it was actually a Catholic tradition or not, because the next day is All Saints' Day. But he says here, look, Halloween is a holy day of obligation, meaning you're required to attend Mass. Avoid superstition and the influence of the occult. Halloween should not be honoured or celebrated apart from the Catholic truth. It is a part of Catholicism, as opposed to Christianity, but it is within Catholic doctrine.
Yeah. That's why you shouldn't be a Catholic.
I didn't say that.
That's my opinion.
So the Catholics, the Romans, they changed everything, right? They're changing all the damn days. They're changing the calendars. And now we got a problem with time zones, the terror of time zones. Back to the great transition. Thank you, QE. Brian.
Yeah, listen, as I said, if I get a knock on the door, I can't ignore it, so I might have to pause if that happens. But other than that, I can't remember what order I put these in. Right, so I'm just going to play it by ear. When I ask you, say, next slide, please, QE, and you put up a slide, I'm just going to go with that.
Thanks for preparing.
I did. I looked in at all my slides, and I didn't have them in order. So they're in a folder, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what's what here. So I'm just going to go, I have the slides in front of me, and just whatever one I see on your screen, I'm pulling that one up on my screen, and I'm going to go with that.
You know what's really funny, too? I got the folder with your presentations and Adam's presentations. There's only a couple in there. And I call it Brian Adams folder. And I looked at it and I said, is this the summer of '69?
No, I think whatever we've done in that folder, we did it for you.
Too funny. Yeah.
Good one, Adam.
All right. So first slide is up. Are you seeing the slide? Because I shared it with Discord. Is everything okay?
Yeah. I'm sharing it. It's just the basic Gleason's map. Okay, I'll get started then, Kiwi.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just get stuck into it. Okay, the Gleason's map. What the Gleason's map is not really a map. It's a calculator. What you see as the continents and the countries, that projection is not matching the latitude and longitude grid that you see there. What you see with the latitude and longitude grid is every 15 degrees is 1 hour. So that's 24 hours all the way around. So each portion of that grid is a time zone. So that's 24 hours, 24 time zones. Now, what you'll notice is the likes of Australia has 3 longitude lines straight through it, whereas in reality, this is the whole point of the presentation, is in reality, it doesn't have. It only has 1 through the center of it, or going through it, which I'm going to show. Now, it might have another 1 or 2 touching of it, but I actually don't know. I don't think it even has that. I think it just has 1 straight through. I'm working off of the 32nd parallel north and 32nd parallel south. So that's what the Gleason's map is. It's a time calculator. It's basically, as it says, longitude and time calculator. So the whole point of it is that it works off of correct local time over a 4-hour period, and obviously it starts with the prime meridian in Greenwich, London. Okay, can we next slide, please? Okay, so this one here is showing. I'm just showing all the longitude lines that cover Australia and cover the United States. Okay, as you can see, you have 3 going through Australia, and the east and west coast of Australia are sticking out past those 3, and you have 2 more either side of that. And with America, you have 3 going through America, actually 4 if you count in northern Maine, I think it is, and then you have 2 more at 1 either side of the US, right? Now, I'm not counting in Alaska here. Obviously, Alaska would be more, and Hawaii, but just for the basic mainland of the United States. And the thing about it is that the problem they have here is that Australia in width is almost as wide as the United States, but the United States is slightly wider, right? Now, if you look at the United States there, I have 1, 2, showing 1, 2, 3, 4 longitude lines going through the United States. And with Australia, there's 3 going through Australia. But this is not correct. Next slide, please, Kibi. Thank you. Where, if you look at Australia there, that green line I have there, that's a line that I made by making a straight line across the United States here on the same map, and I brought it down to the position of Australia. Now, if Australia and America are the same size, that will mean, or basically the same size, almost exactly the same in width, then that will mean that that green line would represent Australia. So as you can see, Australia in reality does not have 3 longitude lines going through it. It has only got 1 longitude line going through it, which is the whole point. But America still has 3 longitude lines, 3 to 4 longitude lines going through it. Yes.
Right. Just before you carry on, can you just maybe explain to people why we're able to make this claim of should be equivalence between?
Oh, I will be.
Yeah.
I'm not divulging that yet. I am. When we get to that part, I'm going to go through it. Okay. Yeah, what it's about. So it's not just that I'm saying, just so to give clarity to the audience, it's not just that I'm saying that should be the way it is. No, there's a reason why I'm saying this, and why I'm saying it with confidence, because that is the way it is, which will be shown in a while. Next slide, please, Kibi. This slide is not so important. That one. Sorry, this one is important. Okay, this slide here. What you see is I have Long Beach in California and Charleston in South Carolina, right? And a line going through between the 2 of them. And I have Perth, Western Australia, and Sydney, Newcastle, which is north of Sydney, and a line going between the 2 of those. Now, that line that is like a chord through that serrated circle, that serrated circle is the 32nd degree north, right? And the line between Perth and Sydney, that's a chord line, and that's a chord line of that serrated circle on the outside, and that's the 32nd degree south. So what we have there is the 30 a line, 2 lines are almost exactly the same length, and on corresponding latitudes, both north and south of the equator. So between Long Beach and Charleston, there is a distance of 2,199 miles. Between Perth and Newcastle, which is just north of Sydney, there's a distance of 2,089 miles. So that means there is only 108 miles of a difference between both of those, 108 miles of a distance difference between those locations. So on a globe, right, the 32nd degree south has to match the 32nd degree north, right, right. But if the Earth is a flat plane and the latitude and longitude grid is a flat grid, which it is because it is measured flat, right, where flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris is what gives us the latitude and longitude grid, which means that everywhere south is diverging out. It's not coming back in to meet again at the bottom of a sphere. So as you can see here, these longitude lines are not matching when they're going through this purple line between Long Beach and Charleston. They're not matching what's happening there and what's happening on the red Australia line. We have 2 lines going through the purple line for Charleston and Long Beach, and only 1 going through the Sydney and Perth, right? But as you can see, as I said earlier, each one of those sections is 1 hour. So the correct local time between Long Beach and Charleston, the correct winter local time is a 3-hour difference. Now, that is 3 sections of longitude, which would be 45 degrees, that is covering that area, and that would be correct, that Charleston and Long Beach would have 3 hours of a difference. So there is always 3 hours of a correct local time difference between those 2 locations. Whereas in Australia, between Newcastle, Sydney, and Perth, there is always only 2 hours of a difference. That's correct local time. So if we were living on a globe, then because both the distance between Long Beach and Charleston is so similar to the distance between Newcastle and Perth in Australia, and the fact that the Long Beach and Charleston are on the 32nd degree north, and Sydney, Newcastle, and Perth are on the 32nd degree south, then there'd be no way that the correct local time between Perth and Sydney could be 2 hours. It would have to be 3 hours, just like Long Beach and Charleston. But it is only 2 hours. Its correct local time is 2 hours, and even with navigation, it's always 2 hours.
Kablooey.
And celestial navigators. Oh, sorry?
Kablooey.
Yes, exactly. It's always only 2 hours. So there's always 3 hours between Long Beach and Charleston, and always 2 hours between Perth and Sydney. And that is the correct local time.
We need an answer to that. There's a problem there.
It's because the Earth is flat.
I'm shifting it to the BallTARDs. BallTARDs, you have some splaining to do. I'm going to get the popcorn out because you're in a hurt locker. I don't know if you realize it. I think everyone in the hangout has realized it. What say you? Go ahead, Brian. Sorry about that.
No, you're right. Go on, Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
If the Earth is a ball, then equivalent latitudes in the north and south hemisphere will have the same number of time zones across a distance. We don't have equivalent number of time zones in the northern and southern hemispheres, therefore the Earth is not a ball. So that's the claim we're making here. These are supposed to be, if we're on a ball, these 2 distances, because they're at the same latitude, same parallel, north and south, they should have exactly the same number of time zones, because they are on a ball expressed in exactly the same distance away from the equator, to give those exact same time zones. We don't have them, and there is a huge discrepancy, as Brian's showing. It needs
Yeah,
formulating, I think.
massive
I
one.
kind of got halfway through it, but I think there's a nice modus tolerance in there.
Yes, there
Yeah, you're right.
is. And can you guess what they're going to say about this? One guess.
Well, they're going to bring up political time zones.
No,
Refraction.
they're not going to do any. They can't do refraction. Some may do that because because they're morons. But can you think of anything else that they could say, and not political? What else could they say about here in the southern hemisphere in their paradigm? What could they say?
That it's expanded more than the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, I heard them both. So Adam said oblate, and you said more expanded. So oblate spheroid. You got a problem. You got many problems, but this one stands out to just the average knuckle dragger on the street. You're going to have to call NASA and have them redact over 50 years of ball photos. There are no oblate spheroids in their quifer, in other words. So once they redact all their photos and then give us an oblate spheroid photo, you're screwed.
I know you don't like us giving them things, but they can have their oblate. Even with any oblateness, the extent to which there is a perversion in the passage of the sun, in the number of time zones experienced, is demonstration enough. Even if you've got a bit of chubbiness down below, it's not sufficient to explain it.
Okay.
Well, their oblate spheroid claim comes from the claim that the Earth is that their globe is rotating. So it would only happen at their equator, and it's a pre-assumption that their Earth is rotating that they say that it's oblate. It's like, well, it has to be oblate because it's rotating. So it's a double begging the question kind of thing. But that wouldn't matter because the latitude and longitude grid can't work on anything that's not either flat or a perfect sphere.
Right.
So they can't make it oblate and also have a working latitude and longitude.
Yeah, good point, Brian. I was just that was just a superficial rebuttal to it. You are correct, sir.
You know what it'd be like? It'd be like, you put on a jumper and it just doesn't fit right and it ends up not coming down to your waist. You have a jumper up above your belly button. That's what it would be like, because if it's too wide at the center, then none of the 69.04 statuate miles per degree is not going to work.
Correct.
It won't work, and they can't do anything from the center because it's all going to be skewed and everything's going to be wrong. So even though some of them might try something silly like that, it can't work because we're actually referencing the latitude and longitude grid here. The thing that wouldn't work under those circumstances. But we'll go to the next slide, QB, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Make sure I have the same one. Right, I do. Okay, this is just to show the arc length, right? So from Long Beach to Charleston, South Carolina, right? The arc length between the arc length that that 3 time zones take up there. Sorry, I'll say that a better way. The arc length of those 3 time zones, right, that Charleston and to Long Beach sits inside, is a length of 3,143 miles. But the arc length that the Sydney to Perth 2 time zones sits inside is 4,410 miles. So that's 3 time zones north of the equator are 3,143 miles of an arc length if we're using the latitude grid, and 2 time zones south of the equator at our corresponding 32nd latitude is 4,410 miles. That means there's 1,267 miles of a deficit between them. just under arc lengths based off of just the latitude, the ring of latitude alone. So that's only for 2 time zones. So that's just something else for people to look at. It's like that this is the way it actually is in reality. This is the way it's referenced by people who actually sail and do stuff like that. Even Recife, the French sailor, he spoke about this as well. And he reminded me about this from years ago. Someone else brought it up. And I remember it myself years back. But he reminded me when he brought it up, and he made the point that there was only 2 hours of correct local time across Australia. He said, but there's 3 across America, 3 to 4, he said, across America. He said, yet they're of almost equal size. He said, that's impossible on a globe. And he was right. So the 3 time zones at around the 32nd degree north is 1,267 miles shorter than 2 around the 32nd degree south, if you're talking about an arc length. So that's a massive discrepancy. Next slide, please, Kubi. Okay, thank you. Okay, here is another one. So I have added in another one here. I have, of course, we have Perth to Sydney, Newcastle, which with a distance of 2,088 miles, and that's a flight distance, straight line flight distance, and that's a 2-hour time difference. I have Long Beach to Charleston, which was 2,196 miles. That's a 3-hour time difference. But then I have Seattle to Halifax, right, which is 2,760 miles and a 4-hour time difference, right? So the thing about that is this: that is 4 different portions of, let's say, so 60 degrees. So Seattle to Halifax sits within 60 degrees of longitude. Charleston to Long Beach sits within 45 degrees of longitude, and Sydney Newcastle to Perth sits within 30 degrees of longitude. So that means that Sydney to Perth is only 2 time zones, yet Seattle to Halifax is 4. Now, the problem is that the distance that 4 takes up and the distance that 2 take up in these 2 different parts of the world is phenomenally different. So if you could just share the that, I think it's my last one, QEs, the last slide where I sent you earlier today. Thank you. Okay, so just Seattle to Halifax, 2,760 miles, 4 time zones. Long Beach to Charleston, 2,196, 3 time zones. Perth to Newcastle, Sydney, 2,089 miles, 2 time zones. Distance between the Australia 2 time zones and USA 3 time zone examples is 108 miles. Distance between Australia 2 time zones and Canada 4 time zones examples is 672 miles. So that just shows the massive distance difference in distances. When I mean, there's only 108 miles difference between Australia and between Sydney and Perth and Charleston and Long Beach, and there's only 108 miles difference. Yet they're on corresponding latitudes, and yet America has, across that 32nd degree latitude, across that distance, they're within 3 time zones, and only 2 for Australia. And they're the correct. They're not political. They are the correct local time zones. Because a lot of stuff is messed around with politically, but if you're using a chronometer, then you've got to work with correct time zones. I have several videos from different celestial navigators speaking about this, and it's 15 degrees of longitude is 1 hour, and that's 1 time zone. And they speak about it. Now, they don't go into the thing about Australia and America. They don't do that. But they speak about what exactly a time zone is. Because when you're using the chronometer, you're not dealing with politics, you're dealing with what is. And the latitude and longitude grid is set up in such a way where a lot of people mix this up concerning the latitude and longitude grid. is they think that the sun has something to do with the latitude and longitude grid. It doesn't. It takes a 24 hours of the solar day into account, but that doesn't mean that any of the rings of latitude have anything to do with the sun's path. It's just the time it takes for a full solar day, which is 24 hours, is broken up into equal segments. And that's why Australia has only 2 time zones across its width, where across the 32nd degree, and America across the same degree has 3, because they're in 2 different parts of the world, and all the longitude lines, so you might hear a bit of noise at the back, all the longitude lines all diverge from the center, because it's making a clock. It's basically, if you can get a 24-hour wall clock, and it looks basically like the latitude and longitude grid, because that's what it is. It's a 24-hour wall clock, if you want to see it that way. That's what it is. So the sun's path has nothing to do with the latitude and longitude. It will be over certain parts of that during the year, like obviously the solstices and at the equinoxes. But that's only a point that it's over. That has nothing to do with the sun's path. That doesn't mean the sun follows that latitude all year or every day as a circle. It doesn't mean that at all. So people mix that up a lot, because what the globe did is it took the latitude and longitude grid, it turned it into a globe, and then they had to work the angles out, so the sun was hitting those particular latitude lines all like for a full 24-hour day. So it's like that's not how it works. The latitude and longitude grid is purely based off of Polaris and your position in relation to the GP of Polaris. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with the sun's path. It's got to do with the time, the 24-hour days. The 24 hours of a day of a full solar day. That's what it does take into account, and it breaks it up into 15-degree segments. So, because the sun changes its path every day and changes what it does every day. But this keeping 15 degrees per hour for 24 hours is the way that they figured out how to best, let's just say, the best way to show it or define it. So that's why solar noon and correct local solar noon and correct and local noon are two different noons. That's why, because local noon is based off of the latitude and longitude grid. Solar noon is based off of the sun. So I won't say too much more about it because I'll start confusing people.
Before you change that slide, Bry, my maths kicked in. And you're describing there the very small 108-mile difference between the two stated equal parallels. Worked it out just so you've got the actual difference in terms of that. It would be 6 minutes. So there should only, in those 108 miles, there's only 6 minutes. Difference to account for. We're not talking the 2 hours of the extra time zones.
Yeah, whereas one extra time zone would be a massive distance.
It'd be 60
if
minutes.
You were, well, yeah.
15 degrees.
If Huey, if you wouldn't mind putting up, maybe putting back up the one we had earlier. We had the 24. We had the brown one with the longitude lines I made. Or any of them to show the full grid. That one, yeah, please. Yeah, exactly. Because what Adam is saying there is that it's only 6 minutes. So that's all 108 miles would be. It's like what? So if you want to say it, Adam, do you want to say what we're saying? Point it out to people.
Yeah. So if a baller is going to make the excuse, well, that they're slightly different distances, and what I've done is using the equation of time in terms of when we're using the sun, that what would actually be the difference in the transit of the sun from midday Sydney to midday Perth and Long Beach to Charleston, the actual, because they should be equivalent, but they're slightly out, and the slightly outness of them is about 6 minutes. That's how much they should be. But as you can see, we're looking at 2 hours, aren't we? Yeah. That's the reality of the difference in time zones And in actual fact, if the Earth is a ball and equal parallels, north and south, have equal distance, they therefore have equal time zones, they should be exactly the same bar 6 minutes, is what I'm saying. They're not. They're nowhere near the same bar 2 hours.
Well, yeah, if Kiwi, if you wouldn't mind showing the original, the first slide you put up, which is the one with the Gleason's map, please. Just a basic Gleason's map will do. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Thank you. Well, that's it. If you look at Australia here, you can see the size it is because they've had to stretch it. So what they've done is they've taken a world map and they've stretched everything from at least the equator south, and everything is stretched and messed up. Whereas in reality, Australia can't be that size because it only has two hours local time. Whereas if it was into this next time zone to the left or to the, let's just say, to the west and to the east, then it would be 4 time zones. There'd be 4 hours difference or 3.5 hours difference between Sydney and Perth. While the rest of them, there's only 2 because it sits within. It only has 1 longitude line going through it, not 3 going through it.
Even if you chop the end off at Perth, stick it on the other end of Australia, you get about 2.5 complete full segments. It's not the 4-5 you're getting in North America. Yeah, you can quibble over those minutiae, but look at the magnitude of it. There's a whole extra time scale. Even if you're going to quibble if it's this, that, or the other, there's still another whole segment at least. And I would argue there's more. There's at least one whole extra segment. Yeah? 60 minutes in of itself. That's a scale of magnitude difference. It makes sense. It's not. You don't need to quibble over the minutes. We don't need to justify them. You can see just by basic counting the segments, you can see how much more time zones are in what should, if you're on a ball, be an equivalent. It's not.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's why this is America and America and Australia are such a great example because of this. We don't like there is other ones I've found with Hawaii and Fiji that would be easy to show, but we don't need to do any. We don't need to show any others because there's a corresponding latitude, which is the 32nd degree north going through America and the 32nd degree south going through Australia. Then there's no way. Especially considering that those distances between those locations are so almost equal, there is no way that Australia could be different from America if we lived on a globe. It's just impossible. You know what I mean? It can't be only 2 hours difference between Newcastle and Perth, and 3 hours difference between Long Beach and Charleston. It can't be. You know what I mean? If the Earth was a globe. But it can be if the Earth is flat. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be. So what the Gleason's map is, as I said earlier, and as some of you already know, it's not a map. They took a projection of a globe that was stretched from the equator out, and he placed it underneath a correct latitude and longitude grid, because that's the way the latitude and longitude grid is supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be used. It's not supposed to be a globe. That's what they used to create their globe. And what they did is he placed this skewed projection underneath. If you could take that get the actual correct landmass sizes and place them all underneath that latitude and longitude grid in the size they're supposed to be, then we would actually have some semblance of a somewhat correct world map, because we don't have one at the moment. But what Gleason did is he's using the correct latitude and longitude grid the way it's supposed to be used and the way it really is, which is flat. But he's trying to place this big skewed Australia continent, which is probably about 7,000 miles long, when it's not 7,000 miles long. It's only two and something thousand miles.
Yeah, but to deal with ball apologetics, what they might try to do, oh well, it's a projection. Look how big, that's what you're claiming it is. Look how big Australia is. No. What we're saying is if it's a ball, yeah, and you put it in this projection, then as daft as you think Australia is big, in this form of projection, Australia needs to be even bigger. When you then rewrap that around your ball, it should take up the same number of time zones as North America. Ignore the projection. It's not a map. When you project it, if the ball is correct, Australia would have to be another time zone and a bit bigger to take up an equivalent number of time zones because it's on the same equivalent north-south parallel as North America, which is taking up 4 or 5. So ignore the fact it's a map when the ballers throw that at you. This is a projection. And if it was a projection of a ball, then Australia would have to be even bigger to make the claim that the 32nd parallel north and south are the same. It's just demonstrating it's not. It doesn't have equivalent time zones. Their rebuttal is our strength, is my point.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about this is that they haven't. Oh, the only rebuttal that I got from this to this, and I've got it for months after I put out this video, or the original video on this, is that all they said is they kept on trying to argue with me that they don't know what a time zone is, and they're just political things. And even when I went to the border, not that I had to do it, but just out of spite, I shared with them someone who's I think 2 different videos of guys who are ballers, but also celestial navigators, and they were detailing what a time zone was. And they were like basically because they have to use time zones correctly when they're using a chronometer. You can't mess around. That's the whole point of a chronometer. So you're keeping the same time. You know where you are. Your longitude is based off of Greenwich. I mean the Greenwich longitude. So all they could say was, I don't know what a time zone is. That was basically all I got. And I got hundreds, I'd say, at this stage of comments. You don't know what a time zone is. Yet, no matter what I did to present them with supporting evidence that I do know what a time zone is, and even a baller who's a celestial navigator, 2 different videos I think it was, shared with them, proven to them that exactly what I said is exactly what they're saying, and they're even ballers. That all they could come back, they just started hand wave dismissing these videos and trying to tell me I don't know they don't have an answer because you can't. There's just certain things are impossible, and it's impossible that across those 2 corresponding 32-degree latitudes, south and north, that 2 land masses that are basically exactly the same size, they have to have the same amount of time zones because of what a time zone is, which is 15 degrees of longitude. They have to have, but they don't. One has 3, the other has 2.
There's enough comments in chat that China's only got 1 political time zone. We'll cover that next week. Okay. That's part of the subterfuge. And we'll discuss that. But what we're talking about here is the fundamentals of using the sun to make a determination of time zones. Yeah. That's what's happening here. That's what this chart uses. This chart, you notice I keep saying chart. I know it says standard map. It's not. It's a chart. That's what this you can use and read this chart to tell you that the sun positions. That's the principle that you want to get. And there's no way, whether it be flat or a ball, irrespective of what happened in the southern hemisphere, if you're on a ball, these time zones are variant, that they should be anything other than anything solidly consistent. And that doesn't mean that people in Beijing have a real midday and people on the west side of China have midday at 9 o'clock in the morning for a political reason. And I said, we'll discuss that. But that skewing of their political reason is determined by the passage of the sun. That's what Brian's saying here. That shouldn't be debatable. That should be a rigid, fixed thing. And if that was the case, then the number of time zones in equivalent parallels would be the same for North America and Australia, and they're not.
Yeah, the China thing, I heard that a lot as well. China only has 1 time zone. It's like, no, that's a political thing. That is not their time zones. Try sailing around China and trying to find your longitude, and you'll have to use a chronometer, and then you'll have to deal with a 15 degrees per hour time zones. Right,
Got
so
it.
Well,
this
that's
whole
the
thing,
point.
yeah,
Exactly.
You're going to use the sun's charts of the time zones to determine them. Yeah, that's what you're going to refer to. You're not going to say what time is it in Beijing when you're in Nanping. It doesn't. Yeah. So you're gonna then, if you're sailing around, you're going to not be dealing with any political time zones whatsoever. Like I say, they're just a confusion.
yeah. I mean, because even Recife, the French sailor, even he said that Australia tried to add in another time zone in the center. It's like this half an hour point place in the center, but it doesn't change anything because that doesn't change that. Even though they're trying to politically add in this little center area, that doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the fact that there's only 2 hours of correct local time between Sydney and Newcastle and Perth. That can't change, and that's the thing they can't get away from. You can't change that. So any nonsense that, like as I said, you try sailing the South China Seas, and you will have to address time zones as 15 degrees per hour because you'll need a chronometer.
No,
And
they got to
that's the way
call.
it's gonna be.
Nope. They're going to call Beijing on their cell. Hey, what time is it there, Holmes? No. You guys you ballers are screwed by latitude and longitude lines. Gotta
Exactly.
love that.
You can't. There's no way out of it. Even if it was a globe, even if the Earth was a globe, they still would have to adhere to 15 degrees of longitude per hour. That would still be the way it would be.
Yes.
It's just that Australia would have 3 time zones between Sydney and Perth. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That would be the difference.
Yep.
But they don't have. There's just no way out of this. This is as you would say, a slam dunk. It just can't be. There's certain things that just are impossible. And Australia having 2 time zones across that same latitude that America has 3, that's only possible on one projection of the Earth. That's a flat projection. It's not possible in any other way. So I don't know what they're going to say or what they're going to do with this, because as I said, all I got for months afterwards was that you don't know what the time zone is. And China, they kept bringing up China. I said, I don't care about China. Do you know what I mean? I don't care what China says.
Yeah.
They're wrong if they want to say they only have one time zone.
I already told you the rebuttal. We got refraction.
They might as well be saying that.
Yeah.
That'd be better than telling me about China.
Yep. You'd be better off saying that than bringing up China. You're exactly correct. You gotta love that.
Gabok, China.
Gabok. All right, you done? Is that it?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, good night, ballers. Again. You guys are screwed, man. Hello, ballers. Any ballers in the chat? Oh, Betty had to go. Bye, Betty. She ain't hearing that.
She said she's coming back, though.
Yeah, she might be back if we stay long enough, but she's gone.
Left ages ago.
Did she? Little
Yeah.
stinker.
Adam will go through all the political stuff next week. Show all the nonsense.
It's just to explain it, just to address those points. There's lots of confusion. We'll address those points, but then I'm then going to refer it to the navigational charts, the time zones they use. Like I said, I won't go into too much detail, but next week's just showing you how they're going to try and stitch a ball together. Hopefully, what we've shown you here is how we take and demonstrate that we're taking the ball apart. It's not doable on a ball. Not commensurate, these time zones, with what they're claiming the layout of the land is on this ball. If it was, there would be equivalent time zones. It's I'm not worried about the other time zone information, just concentrating on this one point. Yeah? I said if they're gonna tack it and go, whoa, look at the size of Australia. Yes, it's a projection. But if this was a projection of a ball and the equivalent time zones, Australia would be even bigger in this projection. Yeah, that's the point. And now it's not our claim, it's a consequence of you guys claiming it's a ball. That's what we're showing here. The consequence of your claim is you should have equivalent time zones. You don't.
Yeah, it's nearly handed to us on a plate, the 32 degrees thing. It's like you couldn't have 4 locations in 4 better positions to debunk the globe with. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's exactly what you need, kind of thing. You know, right there. I couldn't ask for better. You know, it's actually one of the easiest arguments to make. I think like a lot, like some, you know what it is? I think with some of these arguments, when they're really hard for the ballers to overcome, they just get ignored. Kind of like some of the other ones. They just don't want to talk about them and don't bring them up.
So then,
I'm still here.
all right, good show, bro. I was, like I say, it's a good point to reiterate, and we've made it once and we've heard nothing. It's a bit like Bad Moon Shadow, isn't it? It all goes very quiet.
Yeah, because it's kind of can't happen on a globe, Earth. That's kind of, it just can't. You know, so that's the problem. Bad Moon Shadow, that takes away the origins of the globe, and then other ones like full moon in the daytime. That, you know what I mean? That's not supposed to happen at all. All these kind of things, it's just like, it's like the black swan, all this kind of stuff. It's like none of that is supposed to happen. You know, according to what we were told the world was when we were growing up.
If we get any info from Rufy this week after it again. Rufy, if you're out there, come on. I'd like your feedback on this one. I would like to hear your rebuttal.
Yeah, real way for someone I didn't hear anything about from him on this. Not one word that I remember.
He's been sending me Blackpool Swan pictures again, but I mean,
oh no.
Telling me how to put a ruler on a picture.
Oh god, that's the worst. That's the worst argument to hold on to. It's terrible.
Worst thing, I said, show me these pictures, and I said, can you show me where the Earth curve is? And he puts it halfway up the mountain. It's really odd. From the Blackpool Swan, it's halfway up the mountain at the top of the first hill after the shoreline. That's Earth curve, according to Rufy in the picture. The way you determine it is with a ruler on that picture.
What I did is I made.
See, that's the crap. Happy to discuss. It's like, I mean, how do you even go? Why even waste your breath? I'm ridiculing it as I'm describing it. Yeah, but that's what they want you to deal with. Well, here's a picture, and I've put a ruler on it. Halfway up that mountain, that's Earth curve.
Yeah, it's like, what are you supposed to do with halfway up that mountain? You know what I mean?
They can talk all day with you as you discuss that nonsense with them, won't they? You and present them these time zones, and they're quiet. So come on, Rufy. Presentation's here. I look forward to your response. You're normally quick on the button.
What I actually did, and Ruhif did not like it at all, was I made a video. You know the way the Blackpool Swan thing, they keep on wanting us to orthographically show the Blackpool Tower and the mountain, right? And how if you take a line and you go up, take that line above the Blackpool Tower, and it will appear to hit the top of the mountain, up at the very, very top of the mountain. And they're saying, see, it doesn't work. But what I did is I said, no, because you're excluding perspective. I said, so what I did is I brought them down to their angular sizes for the observer. And their angular sizes gives the impression, when you take a line orthographically then, gives the impression to the person that they're looking above the mountain when they're not. It's just that the angular size of the mountain, even though it's slightly bigger than the angular size of the tower, when it's slightly back from the tower, it only has to be a little bit back, and the line is already missing it, because the observer is seeing two angular sizes. The observer is not seeing actual sizes. That's the thing about it. So orthographic puts things in actual sizes. It doesn't have an angular size. So I changed them and brought them down to their angular sizes and showed how it's exactly what we see in reality. And Lieu went mental. You can't do that. The fellow who was measuring pixels on the screen telling me I can't do that, because I just showed how just doing that brings a bit of reality into it, and it shows how, yeah, it works perfect on a flat plane. But they need to constantly put everything in orthographic view, where there is no angular size, there is no perspective, and basically take away perspective and make everything kind of grey and bland, as opposed to, in reality, we see things in their perspective size, their angular size. So once I brought the angular sizes into it orthographically, he did not like it at all. They all went mad. I have thousands of views on it, on a video that, you know what I mean, a video that you would think only a few hundred. I have 4,000 or 5,000 views on this video, and the amount of comments I have, hate comments, is phenomenal in that. You can't do that. They're all telling you what you can't do. You can do whatever you want as long as you're working within what reality will be. And they just didn't like it at all. They hate it. You can't do that. You can't change the angular size of something, in orthographic view. I said, I can if I want. If I'm bringing it down to what their angular sizes are, and I'm showing how the observer would, from the observer's point of view, they would think that they're looking over the top of the mountain when they're looking over the top of the tower. I even showed a demonstration of what it is. It's called visual occultation. I even showed a demonstration of it. They don't want to accept the demonstration of it. They don't want to accept anything. They just want to keep on measuring Earth curve, as you said, halfway up a mountain, and counting pixels on a screen. It's just like all day they'll do this complete nonsense.
I'm talking about the double dip, because that's what they don't want to do. They don't want you to put the drop in, subtract that from the height of the mountain before you do the angular size on it. Yeah? They just want to give you a flat plane and do the angular size on the mountain, allow the angular size to then, that reduction to equate to Earth curve. That's what they try and fudge you off with. You got to make them, discussing the other day with, was Tony, or the double dip is basically what it's the perspective hijacking. They want to hijack perspective, call it curvature, and stick it in orthographic view. In actual fact, you've got to put on your curvature, realize how much you've then put your 2,000-foot mountain below 1,000-foot of curve, and you do an angular size on the 1,000-foot, because that's all you've got. That's when they bob it, because that's what they won't do and don't do at all.
Yeah, I remember in the debate with Ranty, I remember towards the end, I showed how once you add in the curvature, the hidden amount, and do the angular size with that, how the mountain would have been kind of only a quarter way up the tower for the person looking, something ridiculous like that. And of course, he had no answer to it. Conspiracy Cats didn't say anything about it either. He was hosting the show, so he kind of couldn't say much. But what I did with the orthographic view, Lieu, I remember in particular, was very unhappy about. You can't do that. But all I did was add perspective into a situation that they're trying to create, which takes perspective out of it. Because they need to constantly take perspective out of it and then curve the underneath of everything and then show how Do you know what I mean? It's our curve, while perspective is completely ignored. So it's like, it's like the angular size of the sun. The sun can have an angular size, but the mountain in the distance can't have an angular size. The boat can't have an angular size. The car can't have an angular size on a model, or in their paradigm, let's just say. But the sun can have an angular size because you need the sun to have an angular size. But there will be no perspective taken into account with the apparent rise and fall rate of Polaris. They won't be taking any perspective into account there. So they bring perspective into it and angular size and stuff like that into it when it suits them and when they need to. But when they exclude it when they want to as well.
Agree. Anyway, we're sidetracking from your presentation, so whatever's just right. Kiwi, are you back or are you off?
I'm back.
You're back. I was going to try and bring it back there and open it up to the panel. Anybody wanted to comment on the presentation this evening? Start with you, Dank, if you're there. Or if not, I'll move to Ebo. Oh, they're all answering the door for trick-or-treaters. Patsy Savers, did you watch it?
I did. I got here a little late, but he hadn't started his presentation yet, so I got here just in time.
Understand it?
Yeah, for the most part. Just focusing on how time zones don't really necessarily work with the sun, and how if Australia needs to be much bigger on that Gleason's map, but it doesn't make sense with the time zones. So, and I guess in comparison to America. So,
Thank you. It was
gotcha.
Nice summary, mate. Yeah. So it's not our claim; it's their claim, and we're just showing that their claim doesn't stack up. We don't have hemispheres.
If you look at what the globe did, they took the latitude and longitude grid, they made all the south ends of the longitude lines meet, which turned, the only way to make them meet is it automatically turns the latitude and longitude grid into a sphere. And then they gave the impression the circles of latitude had some connection to the sun. If you look at how they make the sun work on their model, is they have their model rotating, or let's call it their sphere rotating over a 24-hour period, and the sun will be directly hitting the exact part at the exact angle they need it to. But it's not the latitude line, the circles of latitude have nothing to do with the sun, although the sun will have its GP over them positions at times. I'm not saying it won't have, but they are just like it's like with the latitude lines. The sun will, like, local noon and solar noon won't be always the same. Most of the time they'll be different. It's the same thing with the latitude lines. Sometimes the sun's GP will be over the latitude line you're expecting it to be, but other times it won't be, because it's a clock. That's what the latitude and longitude grid basically is. It's like a clock.
Well,
you know what I mean? If it go on.
Oh, I was going to say, well, the way that I understand it is that, when you have the equator and the tropics and the latitude and longitude lines, those are all celestial anyways. So imposing them down to terrestrial is going to be very wildly inaccurate anyways.
Well, all the latitude and longitude grid is wherever your coordinates are, it's only your coordinates in relation to the GP point of Polaris. That's how it works. So everything is coming from the GP point of Polaris out the way. So that's the easiest way to think of it, is that wherever your coordinates are right now, they're your coordinates in relation to the GP point of Polaris. That's all it is. So it's
Yeah,
basically. Go on, sorry.
yeah, and that makes sense because the whole the derivation of these lines come from celestial navigation and the elevation angles to Polaris. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the whole thing is derived from elevation angles to Polaris, and that's why if you look at the globe's depiction of Polaris, we'll have somebody moving south to, let's just say, away from the GP point of Polaris, and Polaris will appear to drop in the sky because our curve is getting in the way. That's how they explain it. Or if someone is going north towards the GP of Polaris, once they're north of the equator, then Polaris will be appearing to rise in the sky because our curve is getting less in the way. So it's all based around our curve as opposed to it being just a perspective thing. You're measuring an angle as you move away 69 statute miles, then it drops by it apparently drops by 1 degree. That's all it is. That's how the whole thing is. So it's all derived from that exact thing, and that's where the latitude and longitude grid comes from. So they derived it out to the equator, and then they just extended it on further. That's all they did. It's like, yeah, it's totally correct there, and they found out that it was correct after that. Somehow, I don't know how they did it, but they did it, and that's where it all comes from. But the latitude and longitude grid is basically a clock on top of everything, because it keeps, like, as I said, you could look online and you can see 24-hour clocks, wall clocks, and you would see the 24-hour wall clocks. It's just like the longitude lines on a latitude and longitude grid. That's all it is. It basically looks like a latitude and longitude grid on your wall, 24 hours, because that's what it is. It's just 24 segments, equal segments out of 360 degrees, which are 15 degrees an hour. 24 times is 360. That's all it is. So it's geometric in it's geometrically derived basically from Polaris, and then broken up for the sun for time based on the 24 hours. But the sun itself doesn't adhere to the grid. But the globe wants you to believe, people who promote the globe would like you to believe that the sun is stationary and the globe rotates, and all the longitude lines are basically connected to the sun, or they're somewhat connected to the sun. All the circles of latitude lines, the circles of latitude are basically connected to the sun. But they're not. They're not. They are based off of Polaris. That's what they're based off of, and the sun does happen to be over them from time to time. Obviously, you have the tropics and the equator, but all the tropics and the equator are just actually the tropics are technically just minor latitudes because they're not major latitudes. If you were to do latitudes in the 10 degrees from 90 to 80, 80 to 70, like the tropics are not on any of those. The tropics are 23.4 degrees north and south, so they're not even at the 10 degree marks. So I mean, they're added in because the sun, that's the sun's path between those two markers, but and it obviously crosses the equator twice a year, but the sun's path does not adhere to the latitude and longitude grid. That's what I'm kind of trying to get across to people, is that it's purely based off of Polaris and basically geometric timing of 24 hours. It's that only adheres to the 24-hour solar day, but the sun doesn't adhere to the grid. It's purely a man-made thing. Although when I say man-made, obviously it's not an accident that we derived it. It was obviously there to be derived, but the sun doesn't adhere to it. Whatever path the sun takes, I have no idea. It's such a massive mystery.
Yeah. That's part of the mapping issue. I was doing some geeky research the other day, and I've got a claim I want to make. I'm going to say that celestial navigation has been about for over 3,000 years. I'm going to say 3,200 at least. Right? I was doing some of the history research on Homer's The Odyssey, which is a poem about Ulysses. Whether it's a journey around the Mediterranean because they're lost, or whether it's a journey around the known world, there's great descriptions in it where they use the stars. As they get further and further south, they lose the stars they're used to. They manage to lock onto one or two, manage to get all the way around and back to the Med, learning new stars, but still using the path of the known stars, few they could see, because obviously Polaris has well disappeared on big parts of the journey. That is, Homer writes it apparently in the 8th century BC, and it's supposedly like 500 years old there. So my claim is we've been doing this for at least 3,200 years. And it works, because that's how they've done it. They use celestial navigation, both the knowledge of the stars for GPs and also knowledge of the sun, the time of day. It's all in there, right? They're doing all of this stuff.
I couldn't disagree with you. I'd say it's possibly there's possibly been knowledge about this even older than that. That some of that knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, but if you go back to the fact that around the Giza pyramid, there is an exact 1 nautical mile, isn't it, around the Giza pyramid? Remember, we were looking at that. It's exactly 1 nautical mile. How did they know that exact distance was 1 nautical mile?
Because they already used it.
Yeah.
They have to know everything to place the pyramids in the first place, where they place them, as with everything. So to then just build based on the numbers that represent model they're based on is what they're doing. Yeah? But remember, a nautical mile is what? It's a segment of a degree of arc, isn't it? It's a minute, isn't it?
Well, it's a 1 minute. Yeah, it's 1 minute. 1 minute of degree. Yeah.
So, that's what they're showing you when they show you these things. I don't think they're showing you the circumference of the Earth or the speed of light with some of the dodgy numbers you see, approximations there. But they do show you distances and how all of these distances you see are derived from the stars. Everything, how the stars relate to the Earth, and it is shown. Even the meter is based on distance from the equator to Polaris. It's a 10,000th or something like that. Is a definition of a meter, or 100,000, some decimalization, but that's exactly. And those units are within ancient structures as well. They have they look at it and it's exactly a meter. Doesn't make sense, but they're all in there. That's where these things are derived from. And that's my point. This knowledge is, we've lost the knowledge. We talked about lunatics and how you used to be able to tell time. Remember in the 1700s, the big switcheroo, the naval charts, it all comes in. We'll cover this next week a bit. The biggest switcheroo is the tense that we can't tell time anymore. We need an accurate way of telling time. I don't know how the seas were ever navigated before, if this was a real claim. Yeah. That's the point. And then all the charts need redoing. Everything gets remapped, redone with the use of chronometers. Sorry. It's all rewritten in the 17 to 1800s, like a lot of things. And our knowledge is then limited and reduced as to how we use the stars for all of that knowledge. To the point that we no longer use the heavens to tell time. We had to have a man-made instrument to place it.
Yeah, and as you were saying there recently, you were saying that there was Swiss watchmakers around prior to that, that basically that they already could have given them a chronometer before they had come up with the chronometer. Yeah, it was all a bit strange. Go on, sorry.
It's one of those fantastic tales, isn't it? That you read and go, That's perfect, isn't it? And you did it, and you tried, but you never. The little engine that couldn't. You never quite succeeded. It was only over centuries we've managed to find these naval charts that past 3,000 years we've been perfectly happy getting around, as demonstrated by the Iliad, by the Odyssey. Yeah? These things were known.
Look at China. The Chinese sailed the seas a long time before, they were supposed to have done it. Yeah.
1412 is the Chinese circumnavigation of discovery of North, South America and Europe and then back again, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, well, if you take into account the whole evolution nonsense that they've wanted everyone to believe.
What's that?
Well, yeah, you'll have to ask them.
Right.
I don't know. But the thing is that they want us to believe that we are only civilized now. You know what I mean? That we gradually left caves and became what we are now, whereas we actually have no idea how civilized we were in the past at any time. Whatever age we were in. Obviously things change, but they want you to believe that. So everything they do, same thing as with the globe, everything that they do, they have this internal belief that this thing is correct. So to try and somehow fit everything into that paradigm, they couldn't have had that technology or them abilities back then because we only had that 50 years ago, whatever abilities. It's like, well, how do you know? You don't know what the ancient world was like. You don't know how civilized they were or what abilities they had, or, you know what I mean? What they knew, what their knowledge was. You just don't know. But they want you to believe that they were half cavemen and you're not a caveman now. That's what they want you to believe, when the truth is they have no idea.
Have you seen the new Indiana Jones film?
No, I haven't watched it, no.
Oh. Give me 2 secs, Brian. My phone's gone. I took my phone. Trick or treat is coming. 1 sec.
I'm getting ready for this big build up, and yeah.
Just while Adam is gone, just something for people to give a bit of thought to. A lot of the ballers, they like to try and claim that 60 nautical miles per degree has something to do with their globe, when QE, as you know, it's just based off the arc scale. That's all it is. Now, what they needed to do was find out how many miles, right, it took for 1 degree of angular change via Polaris. But they needed to find out that, right, through statute miles before they could decide how many statute miles would be, before they could decide on how many nautical miles they needed to get the statute miles. Now, they might have had stadia and stuff before that, and how stadia relates to what we call a nautical mile. But for today's world, they needed to find out about statute miles. A statute mile is a horizontal straight line. That's what it is. So they found out that 69.04 of these horizontal straight lines added together end to end made up 1 degree of angular change. And then they divided that by 60 to get 60 nautical miles. That means 60 nautical miles are 60 horizontal miles. They're not an arc, right? That's the arc scale. They're not an arc. They're 60 horizontal miles, because the only way they could find out how many nautical miles fit statute miles is by finding out the statute mile distance first. And a statute mile is a horizontal straight line. That's what it is.
I like that, you cheeky rascal. Can you imagine? You can see guys in the desert or somewhere with chains creating straight lines to get there. But what you can't do is imagining them. See, everything they calculate is on a flat plane. What they can't do is have a curved baseline and have change curving at a rate of r for them to measure it. It has to be straight. You're right. Even if I would say this was known and given. You read scripture, these things are given. So this knowledge is handed down. It's not. I don't even think it's derived by man. It's given the knowledge of the stars. Yeah?
Yes.
But to do it, as you're saying, the clever thing. Yeah. Again, you see, you've got to use it. There's no way you can curve your baseline to define r, given that you've got to curve your baseline at a rate of r. It's paradoxical again, isn't it? The derivation has to be done with straight parallel line or straight continuous line.
Yeah, there's no other way to do
it. You can't, can you?
Well, those same poor dumb bastards think that we're tripping over latitude and longitude lines. That trademark. QE, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hard hitting surveyors.
No, the hard pipe hitting surveyors.
That's the one. I got it right. Have you seen the new Indiana Jones?
No.
But instead of the arc and stuff, Antikytherian mechanism.
Oh, really?
Which is fine. I was really enjoying it until he went, I think it can bend space-time. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's being put out there. And look at the Antikytherian mechanism. It's a 2D clockwork thing. There's no 3D in it. Yeah? It's dealing with planar behavior. It doesn't cope with 3D stuff. But it's nice to see it in there, being put out there. Like I say, it's sad. It's basically a mini TARDIS. It's not something that tells you the positions and is basically a transportable, up-to-dateable almanac. What your Antikytherian mechanism is. Something portable is purported to be.
And when was that?
And it could tell you the time.
Yeah, and when was that purported to be made?
It's about 1500 BC in it, or something silly.
Really?
I'll have to look it up. Let's have a look.
Look it up. Yep.
Oh no, it's only just over 2,000 years, not 3,000 years. So 100 BCE. How much? Take 30 years. 100 BCE.
100 BC.
I hate that. Yeah, BC. I hate that nonsense.
Yeah.
BC. Give or take. I love that. Give or take 30 years.
It's just, is it plus or minus?
Yeah. Just the sound. Really empirical.
And what culture? Who made it?
It's Greek, isn't it? I don't know.
Is there an inventor, or do they just attribute it to a certain society?
It's Aristotle, isn't it? Can't remember who's in the film now. He's in it, in his nice bit of Greek gear as well. Archimedes.
Was it Archimedes?
Yeah. Surely it is. Somebody in chat correct me if I'm wrong. My brain's emptied. Stretch from Archimedes. I don't think anybody actually knows, I suppose, do they? It's just some piece of crap, rusty old bit of crap they found at the bottom of a med, isn't it, really? People make stories up about it.
They found it at the bottom of the Mediterranean? Is that what you said?
Yeah. See, it's all rusty, isn't it, the real thing? It's just not rusty, corroded brass, isn't it? But it's a corroded thing. In the story, they claimed that they'd sealed it in wax. It was all perfect when they found theirs. And Indy hides it.
I'm not talking about the darn movie. I'm talking about an actuality.
It's much more fun, the movie.
I'm sure.
Jones, mate. Let's have a look then. Who is a purported inventor, I suppose? Thought to have been constructed by Archimedes. There you go.
Okay.
I was right. Yeah. I thought it was. I'm sure that's who was in the movie.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, jeez. I haven't really researched the Antikytherian. Is that how you pronounce it? Antikytherian mechanism. I heard things through the years. I just my interest hasn't taken me down that road. Not that it's not interesting. So I would be. And there's probably videos on that out there. If I take my lazy butt and go search them out, I would suppose.
Yeah. Some great ones. They've done the best, and the people rebuilt it, and the things it does. Varying teeth cogs to deal with eccentricities and of the moon, and it's the most amazing device that shows the understanding these people had of the stars to the minutiae. Yeah.
Yes.
And then as Brian says, reality, we couldn't build this today. We couldn't build a steampunk version of Stellarium. Yeah, we could do it in computers, but this was perfect. Yeah, you could take this with you and you just line it up and it will tell you everything else. It tells you, you twist it and you wind in time. That's where the things come from. The whole thing relates to the whole mechanism of the stars over however many years you want to wind it, whatever date you want to set it to. It will tell you where everything is. I said it's just like a portable, updatable almanac. Amazing bit of kit, mate.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. I would probably guess it was older than that, but I'm just saying that out of ignorance.
I ain't got a clue. Timelines are made up. The talk started at the beginning, talking about how they changed the calendar. Ooh, that knocks
Huey,
everything out.
You put that away.
What?
Your ignorance.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on something if I don't know anything about it. That's why I brought it up. I'm somewhat interested. I might get myself going in that direction at some point, but we'll see.
One of Tony's Sleeping Warriors favourites, the Coherently mechanism. Like I say, it's one of those things that show you what we're told is a lie. Yeah, it's one of the things you start out when you first looking at history and all sorts of things. All these parts, as they're called, out of place artifacts.
Yeah,
things that don't make any sense in terms of how we're told humanity progressed.
Well, the more and more I learn, the more horrified I am at people on the internet or in just my everyday life sometimes will be so confident in something that's so wrong. I'm just horrified.
Yeah, it's called Dunning-Kruger. It's a deeper aspect to it. They're taking what the authorities say, the headlines, or what they perceive the authorities are, the scientists, quote unquote, and they figure since they've been studying this for so long, right? And we're in 2023 and so much knowledge has been gained. How could these quote unquote experts, scientists be wrong? Well, number one, it's not science. That's a big problem right there. Number two, they're not experts. But people, Joe Coffey, Betty Breadmaker, those people out on the streets, they just take it as read, right? And they'll just bagok it, right? Just the headlines. They're not going any depth. I'm talking your average 99%er, your average chat skanker, and the people that you meet. Now you'll get your exceptions that have delved in maybe 1 to 5 areas deeply, but that's a rare occurrence. That's an albino blue whale. Other than that, all you're getting is headline parroters. that they haven't done any due diligence or scrutiny. Nothing. They'll just. I can find that on Wiki, what you just said. Do you have anything more with that? Like with nautical miles, like Brian was talking about. How did they actually come up with the nautical mile? Meanwhile, they can't even spell nautical. Follow?
Yeah.
So that's what's pissing you off. Is that right?
Yeah, and just man, it's I don't know. You say it's Dunning-Kruger, but I just think it's like the culture of the younger generations here. They've been taught how to think, or they've been taught what to think and not how to think. So
correct.
But they act like they know for a fact that that you're wrong, they're right. And they'll put something remedial into the chat or whatever.
Sure.
They're just so wrong.
Yeah, that's my kind of party. I like those kind of people.
I'm just horrified these days. Like, I feel like I'm living in some sort of alternate.
That's one of the reasons why I get up in the morning.
And smack those people back to
reality.
reality.
Yeah, it's a target-rich environment.
Of course.
Yeah,
it's like shooting an elephant in a fishbowl, huh?
Yeah, I used to go searching them out. I don't do a lot of that anymore because it's gotten old, right? You can only go so far. I mean, what's your best globe Earth proof? Boats over the horizon, Curie. There's only so many times. A lot of times I'll just leave. It's not. I'm not that interested anymore. I mean, if you're back here like the politics server, it's like taking a step back in time, like the 2015, to all the new globers or they think they're globers and they come in with those ridiculous arguments, right? It just gets old. So maybe it was a blessing, I got out of there. I was getting sick of it.
Well, there's many of us that miss you, so we keep your spirit alive there with the STFUs and put them on mute.
People keep saying that, right? Put them on mute.
Yes. Even some of the Globers are saying it.
Yeah, we went so many times. What she's talking about, folks, is I would just be sitting back in the background and F.E. Jetty and a couple other mods would ask the new ballers, this question. Is there any scientific evidence for a globe? That was the question, right? That everyone, it went on for weeks, right? And every single time they would come up with either they wouldn't be able to answer the question. They remain silent. Most of the times they wouldn't remain silent. There was only a couple of them. But as soon as they would say anything other than Miggy or Jetty, that is a malformed question. The scientific method and natural science do not adjudicate anything about the globe. If they said anything other than that, it was their ass. So they would get quiet. I would take over, and it would happen. It was so bad, folks, that even the Globers that were in there were listening, and I don't even know what they were thinking, but they would try to answer the question, like give scientific evidence. Even though I went over it over and over and over, they would still come back and try and say, yes, there is scientific evidence. It was comical. So I had to. It went on just for too long. The ignorance on there was just beyond the forest of Azure. I really couldn't. Like I said, maybe it was a blessing. They got me out of there. I should say. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say because you were pounding them with a sledgehammer every time you were in there.
Yeah, because it's so, like you said, it's so remedial. It's like 2015 all over again. No, at that time, that wasn't all that bad. Boats going over the horizon. Stars, this is one that still kills me. The stars rotating in the same direction. I mean, that just reeks of without, not only no due diligence or scrutiny, nothing within the vicinity of those two phrases or concepts. Right? Because they're just bagak, bagak, right? Or as Brian would say, gabak. And just repeat the nonsense that they've heard from somebody else or Wiki or Discovery Channel. Like I said, I say this on many of occasions. That star rotating in the opposite directions has to be one of the stupidest claims I think I ever heard. I can remember sitting here hearing that for the first time, and it caught me off guard because I'd never been exposed to it before. And I thought about it for about 5 seconds, and I said, that is one of the stupidest things I ever heard. And I said, wait a second, am I missing something here? Because you have to put two paradigms, right? You got to put the globe paradigm. You have the globe paradigm on one hand, and then you have a flat earth paradigm on the other. Back then, you also had the other Lord Stephen Christ. What was his? Anyone still out there? You guys remember Lord Stephen Christ? What he was championing the
I remember bits about him.
Yeah, the
I just ignored him. Anybody use that name, I just instantly went, ugh.
Oh yeah.
And I've never watched it. I've got to be honest. I never, honestly, I'm not like a Christian like you, but something like that, I just go, ugh, what a dick. I think that's cool.
Yeah, but can you think of any stupider argument? Just think about it. Like, I'm coming in here just brand new, first or second day out here. The stars rotate in opposite directions. Now, man, wait a damn second. Let me jump into your paradigm. That's even moronic, even in your own worldview, Glovers. It's so stupid at a fundamental level, so retarded that it's barely. And like I said, when I first come out here, I don't know what you guys remember, but that went on for some time. There was no comebacks to that argument, by the way. I was shocked. Yeah, I heard that reek that he died in prison. I heard about that. But I don't know. Do you guys remember it differently than me? Because I started jackhammering people with it. No? Yes? No? Adam? Brian? Do you guys remember? You don't have to, you'll be guilty if you say anything.
I'm too new to the game. I haven't been in it that as long as you guys, so I'm fairly like a baby in this whole arena.
Now, let's use that. We'll get off Brian and Adam exposing themselves. Let's get off on that. Now, once you hear that, Flatsy, okay, you're thinking you're in a globe paradigm, right? You're on a spinning ball, and somebody says to you that the stars are spinning in opposite directions for the north versus southern hemisphere. Excuse me. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
That the globe must be spinning in opposite directions.
That's exact. See, yes, that would be the first thing that would come to your mind. A reasonable person, because that's what came to my mind immediately. I'm sitting there. Well, is the northern hemisphere, is that spinning like in a different direction than the southern hemisphere? That's the first thing that came to my mind, and it's so stupid. and of course I just deconstructed it from right there. I mean, with severe contempt on how stupid it was. You'll get people even today, even seasoned ballers, that still stick to that argument.
That's sad.
I can't believe it. It's one of the dumbest things I think I ever heard.
Yeah, me too. I think that it's I don't even some arguments, like, I know that you'll be all over them, but I'll just ignore them. Like, they're just cat skanking or they're just saying a bunch of dumb stuff, and I'm like, you just go ahead and expose yourself because I don't even need to help.
Yeah, yep. I just wanted to point out.
Is it?
Go ahead.
2023, and as Francis says, that is a kind of chat skanky thing. If that comes up now, really, as you say, even on your ball, what's the reality of what that claim means? As Francis said, you got this Rubik's cube in the middle, haven't you, spinning opposite ways?
That's exactly what I was thinking of, Adam, when I first heard it. It was almost like a ball Rubik's cube that spun, you spin your right hand in one direction and your left. That's how I thought about it. I said, wait a damn second. And back then it was Timmy Clown, but I think Timmy Clown got it off John LeBon. JLB, you got to have a JLB if you want to be with me. I knew he was a pretended clown right from the start, man. I started firing off on him almost. It wasn't the third day I was all over John LeBon. I had severe contempt for him because he was sort of pretending like he was like in the middle ground. He wasn't a flat earther, but yet he wasn't a glober. But and it wasn't a couple years ago. He was still on that argument, Adam. Right? Because he came.
Things that make you wonder about people. I liked John LeBon in the past, and then he just, when people stay the same and don't form, got that much information, but they still kind of sit on the fence, or a bit like Bev. I'm not having a go at Bev, but take this role, which is just, to me, obscene. It's a weird thing to do. It's non-committal. And it's kind of shithousery, both sides of the argument. And John LeBon that's kind of when I went off him. Yeah, have an opinion, man. You know what I mean? An advocacy role is fine when you're analysing things, but eventually you've got to form some opinion. It would always be a little bit, devoid of that. I kind of went off him when he was hitting into the Nazism and all the.
Oh, I didn't follow that. I was just on the globe Earth flat Earth. I didn't go off on anything like
2019 when I stopped paying attention.
Oh, it was well before that when I stopped paying. The only time I paid attention is when he jumped on Nathan's show. Right? Because that was the last time he came on there. It was after it I don't know what, it had to be 2021. Couple years ago. It wasn't all that long ago when he brought up the same darn argument. He kept on saying, yeah, there's a lot of flat earth proofs out there, but I'm still stuck on this. I was just sitting there waiting, right? Because I knew he'd say it. And that star, he said, but the star rotating in opposite direction, I said, you gotta be kidding me. You still hanging on to that retarded friggin' train wreck, dude? If somebody could find that.
Say about genuineness, yeah? It's not about, are you still holding on to that? Really? You've not worked that out, is the reality. Yeah? That's why I say, if you're still hanging on to that, it's a bit, I'll use another one, like Whitsitt. You give him credit to work things out. He's a smart lad. Really?
No, he's not.
You still present, I know you was going to do that.
No, he's not. He's as dumb as a bag of hammers.
Presenting these contradictions, then you're not smart, are you? Or you've got an alternative agenda. I was saying that's what you get. The smell of John LeBon was what are you doing, mate? This is not genuine behaviour.
Yep.
It's it. Ev. Yeah. All these people. What are you doing? Why are you behaving like this?
Make a horse's asses out of themselves.
Oh, a lot of them do, don't they?
Yes, they do. They don't realize it, which is frigging hilarious.
History's a bugger, isn't it? So, look back at John LeBon coming into Nathan's after all that time. How long was that? A couple of years ago?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, making an arse of yourself. Look at Timothy Clown finally coming back, making an arse of himself. Having 10th Man make an arse of him. All these guys, Witsit, all of them. It's sad, really. But as long as you're recognising it, the contradiction, you just got to put up with them, haven't you, really? It's just... It's part of the feast of nonsense. Look how Flatsy quickly made discernments.
Yep.
Yeah. Quicker than John Le Bon, after 4 or 5 years in the subject, he still couldn't figure that out.
Oh, he was in it a lot longer. Like I said, he was the main proponent. Now, I'm saddling him with that because he was the first one that I heard say it. Not a baller. It was him.
She's not had to put with.
Say again?
Look at the shit she's not had to put. She's saying, "Oh, I've not been around it." I'll tell you what, though, you didn't need to be. You'd have been as frustrated as us. Because look how long it took you to figure out, like, one of the big wigs back then, John Le Bon. Nonsense. You've a mile down the road further than him, after 5 seconds realising it's bunkum. A lot of it is a load of crap. There's not. The memories are with these guys. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily having to deal with these idiots and deal with crap.
But yeah, I take other people's mistakes and learn from them just as much as I learn from my own. So some people will say these days will say something so confidently and be so wrong, and it's like I said earlier, it's horrifying to me because I'm out here like these people like are driving, and I don't know. Let's just leave it at that. Teaching kids, oh my gosh, scary.
You know, I was to go sideways. I went quite early. I knew I'd read it somewhere, so I had to go and do a little search. I was saying, I'm sure it was handed to us. If you believe that the Book of Enoch has some merit, I'll read a little bit. According to the Book of Enoch, the angel Araziel taught humans about the constellations, planets, signs of the heavens. He also taught them about how to build ships and how to navigate the seas. Here's the quote from the Book of Enoch. Raziel is the teacher of the secrets of the earth and the heavens, and all of that is therein. He teaches men how to navigate the seas and how to build ships. He teaches them about the constellations, the planets, and the signs of the heavens. Believe in that wherever your faith is, whatever it is. What I'm saying is this is a really, 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 really old document, older than what we were citing before, yeah? What's it telling you? It's telling you the way to navigate, to get around. Whether you believe an angel, a fallen angel, taught it, it's confirming the way in which you do it is using heavens. Celestial navigation existed then. That's how they got around then, using the signs in the heavens.
Yeah,
however it's attributed.
I'm suspecting it to be a lot older than what we think.
I think if I'm going to be, it's been there forever, mate. Yeah. When you look at the only thing you can look at is things like this. Here, it's telling you from the earliest stages of our history, the way in which we attribute this knowledge is to a fallen angel. Yeah. It was taught. It was gifted to us. Yeah. Not something we figured out, like with rods and staffs. Yeah. It might have worked out a landmine after that in comparison. Yeah, but reality is, the way in which it was given is by our own historical claims. It was gifted to us. And there's nobody makes a false claim. I discovered celestial navigation either. Every bit you see it's attributed as a gift. It's been here forever. Is the point.
I wonder what was the longest sea journey in antiquity, and I know that's a really general statement. It kind of bugs me even to say it, but do you follow where I'm heading with this?
Well, that's what I said. That's what I mentioned earlier. With Odysseus, Homer's it's gone.
What, the Iliad?
No, not the Iliad. The other epic. It's gone.
The Gilgamesh.
No. Get that. No. It will come back to me in a minute. But the Iliad and I hate that. You know when you get your brain empty.
Yeah.
Homer's.
Not Odyssey, is it?
Odyssey. Thank you. Yeah. Jesus, I had Ulysses in my head. I couldn't get him out.
Ulysses, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying. Within that poem, which is attributed to, we went back 1,000 years, 500 years plus. So they're describing how they're using the stars to navigate, and how, when they go further and further south, none of the stars are familiar to them.
Right.
And then how they manage to lock on to some stars. I think somewhere that they've locked onto something that's actually equivalent to going around where Hawaii is and stuff, because they go all through there. They go down. You know when you've got the crashing rocks in the 1970s film, where either the rocks fall in and that's south, going around the Cape in South America. The whole of that epic describes a journey. Describe all the Polynesian islands. That whole thing is, and this is what I mentioned earlier. This is the argument. So in modern understanding, it's supposed to be these guys trudging around the Mediterranean, getting lost around the Med. But then when you compare it to the story, the claims that they lose the stars of familiarity, well, that's not going to happen in the Med. You've got to go further and further. So to me, that's why I come on, this is one of the oldest stories of using celestial navigation to get around, and that's like say 3,000 odd years ago, and that we've at least got Enoch. For me, takes it even further. There's the claim of what people are already doing, not describing a journey, but they're describing how you navigate, how you build boats to get around, and what you do, and who it came from. It doesn't come from any bloke that invented it. It was gifted from Raziel. So that to me is the oldest, but that's the oldest actual description of a journey. Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey from that'd be the oldest one I can think of. I said Brian mentioned the Chinese, but that's attributed to 1412 AD. Similar journey all the way around, including navigating the Cape, both Capes. Like that's 4,000 years later.
Right. It's something that's interesting. I don't want to research it. I want to have somebody else go research it. I want the longest sea journey in antiquity. That's what I want to know. Now, can we know that that's true? We'll get a lot of doubters. I don't want to go down that route. But I'd be interested in hearing what that was. Probably from the Polynesians. Yeah.
So you've got claims in New Zealand, where you'll see blonde-haired and blue-eyed people that aren't of European colonization, but have always been part of the Maoris. And part of the Maori historical claim of where they came from,
right,
is they came from Persia. They travelled out of the gates, which I assume is Gibraltar, Pillars of Hercules. They describe going to South America, traversing a lot of the Polynesian islands before coming to New Zealand. That's how they orally preserve their tradition. There's if you can look at it on YouTube. There's a number of their elders describing the stories and that, and showing you some of these people. But again, they, in their oral tradition, preserve the memory of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. Were the originators of how they got to New Zealand. So that'll be another really, really, really old. And again, they'll describe how they use the stars to cross, particularly the Pacific, then and use it to navigate to the islands. which again tells you all the knowledge is there.
Yes.
These people that believe in on this journey have the route planned out and the ability to follow the map, as it were.
Yeah, I don't think you're just jumping into boats, friggin', you know, rolling on out there without knowing what you're doing. I'm sure that happened. I'm not sure that happened. Who would ever do such a thing? This doesn't make any sense. Follow?
Be a bit daft, wouldn't it?
It would be. You'd be taking pretty big chances. So I'm not thinking there was too many sea journeys that were just flying by the seat of their pants. Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's just go south. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case, man. Interesting, though. All right. Adam, let's go ahead and wrap her up.
What I do is Brian there?
I haven't heard from him in a while. I haven't checked Discord either. So.
I've been in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if you wanted to just summarize your presentation. So it was your presentation, right? Or I will.
Well, the basics of it is that the correct local time across the 32nd degree parallel across the United States, north of the equator, across the United States, is between Long Beach and Charleston. There's 3 hours of correct local time. That's the correct amount. Across the same distance across Australia on the 32nd degree parallel south, or sorry, latitude south, there is only 2 hours of correct local time, meaning that the Earth can't be a globe because it would be impossible for that to happen and the Earth to be a globe, as the 32nd parallel north and south on a globe are exactly the same size. So there would be no way for that to be possible. It's only possible over a flat plane. That's about the size of it. I don't really have much else to say about it. It is what it is.
I think that
Whatever.
I think everything is really crazy. What I think is crazy. I think that everything is the same thing. And it's just different versions of it. Everything is water. Everything is light, matter, water.
Are you high right now?
All the same thing, just different vibrations.
And everything vibrates. And ultimately, we have to become masters of vibration to work through the dimensions of this plane. This is the 3rd dimensional plane. So this physical.
Whatever.
Physical. This is the physical plane. Now, if we close our eyes.
Whatever.
And we envision something, our brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and actual reality.
You go, girl. So I would say the creator exists beyond it, like within it maybe, but
which one is it then?
Yeah, that's what I think. I have heard that about like how all these seemingly like divine properties of water. You can attribute all kinds of things to water, like it morphs around any situation, like it always adapts to the situation. It seems there is no way to get rid of it. It's perpetually in a cycle as if it were omnipresent.
This is what it is, okay? I said empty your mind.
He's got that covered.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
And outside
everyone dies when people die, it's because of dehydration. Even if you're shot, it's the water leaving your body.
What about if you drown?
You know, if you don't have water, you're dead. Everything. Water's delivered everywhere angelically. I don't know.
Or they will say things like, dark matter 100% exists. We know for a fact that dark matter has to exist, but we don't know what it is. So, how could you know it exists?
So I don't agree with people making claims about ether and exactly what it is, and even the name.
So, how could you know it exists?
You hear that, Mr. Anderson? That is the sound of inevitability.